Another underwater search underway on a southern Kentucky lake for a man who disappeared 4 years ago.
Coming up, the life of a veteran is celebrated here at Camp Nelson National Cemetery by both loved ones and complete strangers.
Seeing a mixture of sun and clouds at this moment. The next few hours, we're going to be watching the sky, especially northbound. As we start to see these storms develop, evening and night is the best chance for strong, potentially severe storms. I'm going to get into that timing coming up.
This is WKYT News at Noon.
Good afternoon from WKYT News. I'm Barbara Bailey.
I'm Bill Bryant. Here's what's happening at noon. A dive team from Louisiana is back in southern Kentucky this afternoon to search for a man who's been missing for almost 4 years.
Clarence Holmes disappeared during a storm on Laurel Lake back in 2012. Search crews say they have a new lead that could help them recover Holmes' body. WKYT's Phil Pendleton is in Laurel County now with the very latest. It's our top story at noon.
This is the Marshes Branch area of Laurel Lake here in Laurel County. This is an area where not long ago some cadaver dogs alerted authorities to the possibility of human remains under the water. Now the team from Louisiana arrived here last night. They are back on the water. They're actually in an area that is so far out it's impossible to show you where they are, but they are underwater. They say that it's within a half mile of where Clarence Holmes' boat was found. Now, I got here this morning as the team was preparing to head out on the lake. They say they were in a rush to beat some weather coming in and hoping to search an area that's about 130 to 150 feet deep. The leader of the team says the lake is unusual and it poses a lot of challenges in searching for a body.
I'm used to dealing with 50 feet or less and a flat bottom, and this is a flooded mountain range, so that also adds a lot of...
Now specifically, the team leader tells me they are searching an area where there is an underwater tree that he believes could hold the weight of a body. In Laurel County, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
Now the team plans to be out on the lake for several days. They say they will keep coming back to Kentucky and searching because they want to give the family closure. Police say a man accused of peeping into neighbors' windows was a convicted child molester. Samuel Nolan was arrested after he was reportedly looking into windows at Emma Estates in London where he lived. State police say Nolan is a registered sex offender from Indiana. Nolan is charged with failure to comply with the sex offender registry and criminal trespass.
Well, we are dry here at midday under cloudy skies, though, and temperatures are going to be climbing back into the 80s this afternoon. Storms are going to be rolling in, though, once we hit the evening and into the overnight hours. WKYT meteorologist Micah Harris is live in our First Alert Weather Center with a look at the forecast.
Yeah, if you look at just radar, our radar network out at about it, you don't see much going on. It actually looks pretty good, pretty calm, pretty quiet. But I do want to show you this. I'm going to put satellite on here, meaning you can start to see the clouds start to appear. And if you look to the northern areas, you see the clouds starting to get going in southern portions of Ohio and also central portions back toward Indianapolis and Indiana. Those clouds are building and building and building, and that piece of energy back toward our west is heading our direction. Look for these storms to get going here late afternoon off into the evening hours, and then moving through during the evening and nighttime hours. Temperatures in the mid to upper 70s at this moment. Feels pretty good. We'll be right around 80 degrees later on this afternoon. But storms late in the forecast. And so most of this is going to be after the sun sets. Most of it, not all of it, but most. And I'm going to break down that timing for you. I have updated numbers, updated times coming up in just a few minutes.
And we'll see you shortly with that. Thank you, Mike. A final send-off today for an Air Force veteran in central Kentucky. Johnny Patrick died at a veteran's retirement home last week, but he didn't have any family to give him a proper funeral. So graveside service was held this morning at Camp Nelson National Cemetery in Nicholasville for distant relatives and other vets who came to pay their respects. WKYT's Mike Byer is in Jessamine County now with that story. Mike?
Family and friends of Johnny Patrick say he was a kind person who loved his tomato plants. This morning, loved ones and even complete strangers gathered here at Camp Nelson National Cemetery to say their final goodbye to the fallen veteran.
It was amazing to me today at 9 o'clock in the morning, all the people, the staff who came out. I don't know, there must have been a dozen, 10 or 12. And they were so appreciative of him, and then they brought with them residents who could come.
Ken Griffith is Patrick's first cousin and is one of his only living family members. Knowing that, the Thompson Hood Veterans Center, where Patrick was a resident, sent out a post on Facebook asking anyone who would like to celebrate the life of the veteran to come out to the cemetery, and dozens of people responded. They consisted of his caretakers, other residents, and even complete strangers. Angie Scanlon helped take care of Patrick for over a year. She says he was a very humble man.
He was never one to say an unkind word to anyone. He was always very pleasant. He was just a very, very good person.
Now, staff at the Thompson Hood Veterans Center say they just ordered Johnny more tomato plants. They say since he's no longer here to raise them, that they'll do it for him so they can keep the memory of not only their patient, but their friend alive. In Jessamine County, Mike Byer, WKYT.
Mike, thank you very much. Patrick was 68 years old when he died last week.
A massive fire in southeastern Kentucky forced 5 families from their homes. One person was injured in the fire that destroyed the Davis apartment building in Bell County. That building has been in downtown Pineville for almost 100 years. WKYT's Michelle Chamberlain is at the live desk now with the reaction from a woman who lived in that building. Rebecca?
Yes, Barbara, it's sad to think about several people in Pineville are left without their homes this afternoon, including Shannon Kaufman, who's now just trying to figure out where she's going to live.
I've got 3 kids. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I don't even know where we're going to go.
5 families are displaced following the fire that left residents of the Davis building just watching as their homes burned early this morning.
I had smelled smoke, and I ran out, trying to figure out what it was, and I went over to her apartment, and it was on fire, and I started hollering, fire, fire, fire.
The Davis building was built in the 1920s and stands in the middle of Courthouse Square. Fire officials say that made the fire even more dangerous.
Anytime you get a fire downtown, it runs the risk of spreading majorly, and it can be a big problem with building so close.
One resident, Crystal Young, said she would have died if it wasn't for Eugene Jenkins. Jenkins, now considered a hero, says he was just acting off instincts.
She ran back into the apartment. It was already blazing up the ceiling and everything. I run in there and got her, had to bring her back out.
Now everyone is okay. One person was taken to the hospital with injuries but is expected to be okay. At the live desk, Michelle Chamberlain, WKYT.
Michelle, thank you. The cause of that fire is still unknown. The sister of a Kentucky state representative has died after a fire at her Ashland home. 59-year-old Melanie Sennett was found unresponsive by her roommate early yesterday. The Independent of Ashland reports that Sennett was the sister of State Representative Kevin Sennett, who represents Boyd County. The cause of that fire remains under investigation.
Kentucky's Democratic Attorney General is asking the Executive Branch Ethics Commission to investigate whether Republican Governor Matt Bevin has used campaign contribution records as a grounds for firing state workers. The request is the latest escalation in the feud between Andy Beshear and Governor Bevin. Beshear's request came days after Bevin announced that he will be hiring a private law firm to investigate whether the former governor, Steve Beshear, Andy's father, coerce state workers to donate to political campaigns. Well, if you're one of the thousands of people planning to go to tonight's Pearl Jam concert at Rupp Arena, you will notice some security changes.
For the first time since they were installed, all 30 new stand-up metal detectors are fully up and running. Officials say the new security measures will ultimately get people through security lines quicker. About 16,000 fans are expected to attend tonight's concert. Well, after 3 years under the Golden Dome, Copa Casino is closing its doors for good. In a statement, Greer Companies, owner of the restaurant on Richmond Road, says it was a difficult decision and they will continue to explore different possibilities. Copa was known for serving Latin and Mexican food and for its popular jellyfish aquarium. Anyone with a Copa gift card can use it at both Lexington Cheddar's locations and Willie's locally known.
Voters in 5 states are at the polls today, but the focus of the Republican race is already shifting. We'll explain coming up on Kentucky's #1 Midday News.
Also ahead, Kelly Ripa made her highly anticipated return to live after a nearly week-long hiatus. Find out what she had to say about her absence next on WKYT. Welcome back to WKYT News at Noon. Voters in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware, and Maryland are heading to the polls today.
5 states in all, and Craig Boswell is in Silver Springs, Maryland, with why today could be a big day toward setting the stage for November.
Voters are expected to hand big victories to the frontrunners in the Republican and Democratic presidential primaries today.
Who's going to vote for Trump?
Donald Trump needs 53% of the remaining delegates to lock up the GOP nomination, while Ted Cruz and John Kasich's only hope is a contested convention. The two challengers have formed an alliance to try and stop Trump from becoming the nominee. Kasich agreed not to campaign in Indiana, which votes next week.
He's focusing his attention on other states. What that means is that Indiana gets a straight and direct choice between our campaign and Donald Trump.
Hillary Clinton has a double-digit lead in the polls here in Maryland and is leading in the other states voting today as well. That's why she appears to be focused more on the general election than the primaries.
There could not be a bigger difference between where I stand and what I believe and where the Republicans are.
With 384 delegates at stake, a Clinton sweep would make it almost impossible for Sanders to catch her. Still, the Vermont senator says he will continue to campaign through this summer's convention.
We're in this race to win. We're going to be in California in June, and we'll be in Philadelphia back here in July.
Clinton is calling on Sanders supporters to join her to defeat the Republicans in the fall. Craig Boswell, CBS News, Silver Spring, Maryland.
And Sanders says he wants a strong voice in the Democratic Party platform at the convention in order to push issues that are important to him, such as breaking up the big banks and eliminating income inequality. A top aide to Ted Cruz says the campaign has identified a, quote, short list of possible vice presidential candidates. And former GOP candidate Carly Fiorina confirms that she is being considered as a possible Cruz running mate. Well, the fallout continues this midday surrounding North Carolina's so-called bathroom bill.
Pop stars Demi Lovato and Nick Jonas, who are in the middle of a joint world tour, are the latest artists to cancel shows in the Tar Heel state.
In a post on her Twitter, Lovato says she and Jonas are protesting, quote, this hateful law. It requires transgender people to use restrooms that match the sex on their birth certificate rather than their gender identity. Other entertainers have canceled performances in North Carolina because of the law, including Bruce Springsteen, Ringo Starr, and Pearl Jam.
Thank you.
Well, Kelly Ripa returned to her chair on Daytime this morning. She started the show by addressing the uproar over her being blindsided by the announcement that her co-host, Michael Strahan, is moving to Good Morning America full-time. She reportedly didn't know he was leaving until just before the news went public. Ripa said the incident sparked an important discussion with her bosses over communication and, quote, respect in the workplace. Network executives have since apologized to both Ripa and Strahan, and all is forgiven.
All right, the show went on certainly today. Well, investigators are now working to see if a Mexican drug cartel was involved in the mass shooting of 8 family members in southern Ohio.
We'll have the latest coming up in a report on WKYT News at 12:30.
Now, your zone-by-zone forecast with meteorologist Micah Harris.
It's really heating up outside. What you don't want during this time of year, during these days where you're expecting thunderstorms, sunshine. And look, we have it all across the region, north, south, east, or west. Doesn't matter where you look. It's a beautiful day, but when you step outside, you can actually feel a little of that moisture creeping on in here just ahead of our front that's going to be barreling on through. So we'll finish off around 80 degrees. The front you cannot see right now, but it's just to the north of us. So I'm going to put satellite on here and show you where you can expect this. This front will actually kick southbound as we go throughout the rest of the afternoon, off into the evening and nighttime hours. And just that little kick, I mean, just 50 miles south, what that's going to do, throw some thunderstorms into our region. It starts from the north, finishes off in the south. Let's talk about the strong to severe timing. Remember, you can have a few isolated cells pop up during the afternoon hours. There is that possibility. But when you're talking the strong to severe potential, it's mainly evening, mainly nighttime hours. Let's break it down for you. North of I-64, the best timing on that is going to be 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. for strong to severe storms, the strongest part of this system. Then you get up into the evening and night, then you're talking about the I-64 corridor, BG Parkway, Mountain Parkway, and that does include Lexington, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., South of that, you're talking about 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. And so the deeper you go off into the night, the better likelihood of these storms fading away. So the severe chances, not thunderstorm chances, but the severe chances, better likelihood of that to the north, even though that's still relatively small. And then the farther you go down toward the south, you're talking about really seeing those storms diminish as we go off into the night. So the best chance is really I-64 northbound. If you go across the Cumberland Parkway and Howard Rogers Parkway, down south and southeast, it's really just going to be some heavy downpours, mainly showers with a few rumbles of thunder as we track off into the night. Here's a breakdown on your 7-day forecast, guys. Today, really, we go off into the evening and night. Starting off in the evening and night, through tomorrow, head off into early Thursday, especially the first half of Thursday, you're talking about a very wet pattern. We're looking at anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain, so really heavy rain, and also the potential for an isolated severe cell here or there.
All right, a lot of lightning, you said.
Yeah, a lot of lightning. Yeah, you can expect that.
All right, thank you very much, Micah. We're back in a moment, and more defections for Matthew Mitchell.
And could a former coach from the Commonwealth be coming home? Dave Baker's next with sports.
Back in the fall, Mark Stoops couldn't sing the praises of the EKU football program loudly enough, especially after the Colonels had the Cats on the ropes in Commonwealth in the fourth quarter. Now Stoops could be targeting the architect of that near upset to join the Wildcats staff. WKYT Sports has learned that Stoops is meeting today with Dean Hood. Hood was fired at the end of the 2015 season after 8 years as head coach at EKU. Shortly after that, he accepted a job as assistant head coach and tight ends coach in Charlotte. Charlotte head coach Brad Lambert was the man who succeeded Hood as defensive coordinator at Wake Forest when Hood left to take the EKU job. Stoops is searching for a replacement for Andy Boo, who was Kentucky's outside linebackers coach and special teams coordinator, who left earlier this month to become defensive coordinator at Maryland. While it may seem like a no-brainer to come to Kentucky, a number of folks close to Hood say his loyalty to Lambert could in fact keep him in Charlotte. As expected, a Texas grand jury has indicted ex-Browns quarterback Johnny Manziel on an assault charge after his ex-girlfriend accused him of domestic violence. The Heisman Trophy winner and former Texas A&M star was indicted Tuesday on a charge of misdemeanor assault related to family violence. The Class A misdemeanor carries up to 1 year in jail and a $4,000 fine. Manziel's ex-girlfriend, Colleen Crowley, told police that Manziel repeatedly hit her and threatened to kill her during a night out on January the 3rd. Despite their success this year, 2 more defections in Matthew Mitchell's UK women's basketball program, a player and a coach. Freshman Batuli Kamara asked for and released by Mitchell. It was granted by the coach last night. She is the 6th player to leave the program since last fall. Kamara was a promising 6'2" forward out of New York City. She played in all 33 games. Starting 14, she averaged just over 5 points and 4 rebounds. We've also learned that UK women's assistant Tamika Williams-Jeter has resigned. Shortly after that, Madison Treese, a top 30 player in the 2017 class who had committed to UK hoops last fall, decided to reopen her recruitment. And finally, Steph Curry will be sidelined at least 2 weeks with a sprained MCL in his right knee. The timetable would lead Curry to miss the rest of the first round of the playoffs and at least 4 games in round 2. Right now, the Warriors, who had that record-setting regular season, lead Houston 3-1 in their first-round series. A lot more coming up throughout the day, guys. But for now, that's a look at sports on this Tuesday.
All right, Dave, thank you so much, and we hope you'll keep it here. There's a lot more news coming up in the next half hour of WKYT News at noon.
Governor Bevin is ready to take off on his first overseas trip since taking office.
Coming up at 12:30, we'll take you to the Bluegrass Airport, where the Transportation Security Administration is reminding travelers what they cannot bring on their flights before the Kentucky Derby.
Tonight's Mega Millions jackpot is $108 million, and tomorrow night's Powerball jackpot is $282 million.